Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. This is the Open Championship preview. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm joined today by oddschecker's very own golf tipster, Niall Lyons, to go through his card, go through the runners and riders, and who is going to win the 140th Open Championship at Royal St George's. Niall, how are you doing? It's been a busy couple of weeks with the footy, but time to find something else to get our teeth into. And luckily, the greatest tournament in golf is upon us this weekend.
Yeah, the footy was great the last couple of weeks. To be fair, it was a great watch, even for an
especially
Irishman. Especially for an Irishman in the end.
Especially for an Irishman who texted his mate, who living in the UK, asking who he should back for the Euros, and he replied saying Italy. So yeah, I think you can.
Yeah, to be fair, you did well, and also you had a great shout in Chiesa. We were slightly unlucky there, 150 to 1 top goal scorer, not to get him in the each way places. In fact, he was one of the best players in the whole tournament. I thought great show. But anyway, as you say, Open Championship this week, and it's been 2 years, so it's absolutely delightful to have it back.
Yeah, it is. And back at Royal St George's last time, it was down there on the Kent coast. It was Darren Clarke with a very emotional win. I think it was back in 2011. So before we get into who you've put up in your column, I think it's 8 players. So it's lucky it's just you on the pod today, because otherwise I think we'd probably run out of time. Let's talk about St George's and what kind of a test it is, I guess, to these players, how it differs from maybe some of the other tests. And, Darren Clarke, -5 winning score last time. Are we expecting that to be around the same mark that we're going to see this weekend?
I would hazard a guess it'll be slightly better than that, even though I think the course will play tough enough. When Ben Curtis won back in 2003, he actually won at 1 under par as well. And with the looks of the photos and videos we've seen over the first couple of days practice, the rough's quite high, and it's going to be tough. And it just depends on how much the wind blows. How the scores are going to be kept that low. But it's a great test to have it back, and links golf. It should be a great watch over the week.
Should be brilliant. I mean, I've been lucky enough to play at St George's a few times in the last few years, and I was actually down there a couple of weeks ago. And it's interesting because it's the kind of course that strikes me as one where you're probably going to be benefited by having played there before. There are a lot of blind shots, a lot of blind drives as well. And I think when you look at the leaderboard last time, there's quite a few players up towards the top end. Darren Clarke winning it, of course. Phil Mickelson tied second, Ricky Fowler. And then a bit lower down, still kind of top 10, top 20 area, you've got players like Simon Dyson, Raphael Jacquelin, Davis Love, Lucas Glover, Steve Stricker, all players who've kind of wily old timers who've been there before. But then, of course, you've also got Dustin Johnson and tied second as well, who back then was an exciting younger talent who had the length off the tee and brought a different side to the game as well. So it strikes me as a pretty fair test and the kind of track where you could see pretty much anyone in the field with what they've got in their armory going well. If you can hit it long and straight, that's going to put you in a good position. But also those nerdlers who maybe have a few more years on the clock should be okay as well, as seen by that leaderboard last time. So it's going to be unbelievably exciting to see just this tournament for the first time in a couple of years getting underway on Thursday. We're recording this at 9:20 on Tuesday morning, so a couple of days before. Niall, your tipping column went out yesterday evening, so some people would have already seen them. What we're going to do is just run through your tips, all 8 of them in a row here now, and then go through some of the few players left in the field that you haven't mentioned in there as well. Get on downloading the oddschecker app before you listen or watch this, because there you'll find the best prices that we'll be talking about today, the best place terms. Remarkably, Paddy Power and Boyle Sports both going a 6th, 12 places. I don't think I've ever seen a 6th before, but I'm excited to try and get some 6th, 12 places there at both of those firms too. The best tipsters, including Nile himself, free bets, special offers, and all sorts of other things. So do download the oddschecker app now. The top selection, number 1, 4-point win, the player at the top of the market as well, the US Open champion from last time out. It is, of course, Jon Rahm.
Yeah, I'm quite excited still to get about 9 to 1 about Rahm after his US Open win. He won. It's no surprise that he contended around Torrey Pines, that he loves the place, but the kind of golf that he produced right at the end, especially when around the turn, it looked like it wasn't going to happen for him that day. He 3-putted from about 20 feet, and I think that showed his resilience, and we talked about it in that podcast for the US Open, just what kind of resilience he would show on a Torrey Pines course that at a US Open like that, there things are going to go wrong and how he's going to react, and he reacted so well just to get into the mix there, over the last 3 or 4 holes, and then what he pulled out at the end was unbelievable. That followed what was one of the best performances I think we've seen in golf since Tiger's day, when he was 6th clear in Memorial. Like, I don't think I'm underestimating that. I think that it was some of the best golf that we've ever seen. And since, obviously the US Open win, he really looked like he was going to win in Scotland last week. I can't believe that he didn't. I was trying and hoping to get a free go at this Open. There was quotes of around 66 to 1 to win both of them. So I got a few quid on that. Didn't quite work out, but I think when you come to Royal St George's, it's a better course for him to separate himself from the pack than what the Renaissance was last week. All parts of his game looking great. Nick, he did miss a few short putts last week. Hopefully that won't be the case this week, but everything's going for him. He's one of the best links players in the field. He's won twice on Irish links, and I just think he's in the form probably closest. People will warn you not to kind of overreact to this kind of form, but I think he's possibly in the best form we've seen anyone since Tiger's day. Obviously McIlroy was unbelievable when he won that glut of majors, but it wasn't quite the same competition as what it is now. I think of the past 5 or 10 years, that the guys who have filled the top 5 in the world, I think Rahm's the best putter of them all. Spieth on his day can be the best putter, obviously, but I think Rahm is consistently the best in the greens, and I think that could translate into more majors than anyone else at the top of the game in the next 5 or 10 years. There's not one venue or one major that doesn't really suit him. You've got the likes of Bryson, who will need a long US Open type venue with big rough in order to contend, and the other guys have weaknesses in parts of their game. Dustin Johnson goes through periods where he can't hold a putt. Rory McIlroy, we know his problems, in various parts of his game down the years. Justin Thomas is a shade inconsistent sometimes with his ball striking and with a putter. So I think Rahm is consistently good across his game, and I think it will translate to more major wins than anybody else at the top of the game. And I think the 9 to 1 or around the 9 to 1 is very fair this week, given his record on links. I'm quite excited about his chances once again. Not quite a 5-pointer like he was at Torrey Pines, 4-pointer this week. Just simply because of the Open throws up a shade more volatility, I would say, with the weather and getting on the right side of the draw and stuff. But I'm still quite confident that he contends this.
Rahm 17-2 best price at the moment with Sport Nation. I just want to echo what you said about that performance in the US Open, especially as somebody who had Louis Oosthuizen for a few quid. It was impossible not to be just incredibly impressed by Rahm on that Sunday. I think it's often forgotten. He held that putt on 17, then the putt on 18, but he also went so close to holding long putts on 15 and 16 as well. And I think it was on 13. There was that kind of 30-footer that most of the field would watch 3-putt that. Where they were all putting it about 15, 16 foot past, and Rahm just rolled it up to the hole 2 foot short, which I thought was almost as impressive as anything else we saw on the day, playing at just a different level. Do you have any concerns over the fact that his Open Championship record so far leaves a fair bit to be desired? He's had 4 starts, 59th, 44th, a missed cut, and then an 11th last time out in 2019.
No, I don't think so. Not 11th is a good sign. I think you look down at the stats here down the years, and you'll see that most guys have had a top 10 before winning the Open Championship. But he's got an 11th, so it's not that bad. But nevertheless, I think he's just reached a new level. I think we even talked in the last podcast that you'd be worried about him, down the stretch in a major championship, because he hasn't really been. He hasn't really done.
Look how that turned out.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you can doubt him at all, especially with the golf he's playing. It just eclipses all stats and trends that you would be worried about. I think his game just speaks volumes, and it stands out. So he won't be for many, simply because of the volatility of an Open Championship. You can get in the wrong side of the draw and it can be a disaster. But the weather looks favourable across the board this week. I think it'll be sunny and warm with a bit of wind, and I don't think anybody will really get too bad of a draw. So I'm hoping that that there's no big bias on any side, and that he hopefully gets on the right side, and he'll be hard to beat, I think.
I'm lucky enough to be on the 18th fairway on a Sunday this week. So if Jon Rahm is coming down the stretch, I'll give him an extra clap for you, with his arms in the air, coming down 18. We'll move on to the second selection, and not necessarily from a punting point of view, but the player that if I could pick anyone to cheer down 18 come the Sunday of the Open Championship, it would of course be Jordan Spieth. 3 points each way. He's best price 20-1 at the moment. That's with William Hill, who are fifth, 9 places. And what can you say about Jordan, Nile, and his chances that we haven't already said before?
Well, even during his periods of bad form throughout his career, his form here and at Augusta has remained consistent. He's made 7 of 7 cuts here at an Open Championship, and 2 top 10s outside of his win. So no matter how even poor golf he's playing, he usually comes here and performs, and he's not playing poor anymore. Slight question marks whether he'd be in the same kind of form as what he was earlier in the year, but he hasn't played at all actually since the US Open. But a top 20 there, Torrey Pines, is a great finish for him. It's not really a US Open course that would suit him. It's very long, and he actually missed a cut at the Farmers earlier on in the year in January. That was his last missed cut. So top 20 there is actually a very good sign, and I think Royal St George's will just play into his hands. If you remember the way Dan Clark won, he was hitting the ball low in the greens and running them up, and to be fair, he was getting an awful lot of luck. And if anybody can get the luck needed to win it, it's Jordan Spieth, and he strikes me as just the type that would get it. I think you'll need a bit of imagination coming into these greens, especially if the wind blows. There's often times where you'll need to land the ball maybe 10 or 15 yards before the green and run it up, and I think Spieth's perfect for that plan. There's going to be there's slopes in the fairways that could take even a bad drive into the rough, and even a good approach shot on the greens. There's slopes that'll take it off, so there's a fair amount of luck involved this week, I think, and I think it just plays into Spieth's imagination. He loves a course like that tests the mental side of the game, and there's no one better in the game than that. And I just think his imagination on his short game could propel him into contention over the weekend.
Do we have any idea what he's been doing over the last 3 weeks? Do we know if he's been playing any links golf? Has he taken his time off in order to prepare for this, or has it just been a bit of a break in order to kind of recharge?
Just planning the winning party, as far as I know. Surviving. No, I think I did see somewhere else a few days ago that he was playing some links course, but I actually can't remember where. But it's absolutely of no concern to me. Anyway, he's an expert around these parts, so I think he should take the St George's, and the price is just about fair. I would prefer it a wee bit bigger, simply because he hasn't played in a few weeks. But he seems a likely contender around a place that you'll definitely need to get up and down around the greens, and owe him a bit of luck across the week.
Yeah, onto a player then. We've got 2 there who haven't played Open Championships at Royal St George's yet, but your third tip has certainly got a lot of Open Championship experience. He finished down in 54th back in 2011, but did make the cut and did shoot a 69 on the Friday, so some decent form around there as well. And it's a player that I think I've backed for every single major for the last 7 years. It's Paul Casey, who is currently best price 50-1. Although that is with Sport Nation, who are quarter the 5 places. If you're looking for some juicier place terms, maybe 365 the way to go, who are 45-1, a fifth the 8s. But you've tipped him up at 1.5 points each way. I'm guessing the theory here being find a guy who can hit the ball long and far.
Yeah, and a good ball flight.
And straight, yeah.
You can keep it low, so... He's finished 4th and 7th at the last 2 majors, the PGA and US Open, and that's absolutely super form from Casey. And we've seen it at the back end of last year when he very nearly won the PGA and was just outdone by Morikawa in the end. But he done nothing wrong at the feet there, and it looked like he might kick on this year. And to be fair enough, he has. fourth and seventh, those last two majors is a super record. And he's posted them two finishes whilst losing strokes on the greens those 2 weeks, which is very telling. So if he arrives with the same kind of game and he actually manages to hold a few putts, then it could be a different story, and this could actually be his time. Obviously, we saw Larry won in Port Rush, and it would be similar scenes if Casey won at St George's too, or indeed any Englishman. But Casey has been like Westwood, I guess, the two wily old guys who maybe deserve a major, who haven't quite got over the line. So he's got a poor enough record in Open Championships down the years, bar the third place behind Oosthuizen in 2010 at St Andrews, where he played in the final group that day. But apart from that, he's got a forgettable record, to be fair, in an Open Championship. But the last two major performances are always a big sign when we always talk about this for the next major. So it's always important to look at the results from the US Open at Torrey Pines, where he finished seventh. And I just think the venues this year have suited him, and this could just be up the street as well. And at 45 to 1, 50 to 1 out there, I think is a fair bet.
Paul Casey, the third selection. Onto the fourth. It's Mark Leishman, 1.25 points each way for Leishman, a player that you've tipped up. I think, did you tip up for the PGA, or was it the US Open you put him up for?
Yeah, PGA, yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't go to plan then. So what's getting you back on side here? Best price at the moment, 66s with Unibet, fifth to 7 places.
Well, of course, he won at Torrey Pines, so it was hard to keep him off the list at the US Open around, but I managed to do it, and it didn't work out there either. But he's got 3 top 6 finishes here in Open Championship, and he's the thing that really drew me towards him was his driving at the Travellers last time out. He finished third at the Travellers there a few weeks ago when he drove the ball very well, and that's usually the weakness of his game. And this week, I think you could see a lot more irons off the tee than usual as well, so that will suit him. He's putting very well this year. I think there's a lot of signs that that this may be his year. If you looked at the 4 venues at the start of the year, Augusta, Cave Island, Torrey Pines, and George's here, you would have thought Leishman would have a big chance of breaking his duck. It just hasn't quite worked out so far, but nevertheless, Australians have a great record in this major, and I think he could be one to add his name to the list. He's come close before, and I think the price is just quite tasty when you think about it. He finished third last time out in the PGA Tour event, so 66 to 1 and 70 to 1 out there is very decent for a guy who just looks to be a major winner and waiting.
Yeah, Leishman there, the next selection. The fifth. Now, I try and read as many previews from all of you golf tipsters as I can. I always start with Niles, of course. Then when Ben Coley, who's normally on this podcast, when he put his out last night, I read his, and there was one name that came across a couple of times. And then I read the golf betting system course overview and tipping article this morning, and there was that name came up again. It feels like this is one of those where everybody who knows what they're talking about is getting their heads together and coming up with the same name. It's Brandon Grace, who's currently 70 to 1 best price with a few firms. Mansion Bet probably the one to go with, who are a fifth, the 8. Grace on your shortlist, and plenty others as well.
Yeah, and I think it's quite a when you get the world of tipsters all well in one golfer, it usually doesn't work out. But when you get the tipster world, and then you get no offense to anyone out there, but the mug punting world as well, you can imagine anybody walking into the bookies this week, whether they've read a preview or not, will have Brandon Grace on their dockets. It just all adds up. He's having a great year so far. He won obviously in Puerto Rico. He had a great finish last time out in the major championship as well. Finished 7th at Torrey Pines. Previous to that was 4th at Muirfield Village at the Memorial as well. And that's a great performance for Brandon Grace, who often is a shade inconsistent saying in the big PGA Tour events. But he's won at Harbour Town as well. Has won at Dunhill Links. Has a win in Qatar as well. Everything points towards a great links player, and we do know that he's a great links player. He broke the scoring record at Birkdale in 2017, shooting a 62 there on the Saturday. So he already holds records in the Open Championship without winning it. but everything just seems to be aligned. His father died early on in the year, and that win in Puerto Rico was quite an emotional one. And I think he might just show the same kind of resolve to play well here at St George's, and he will definitely fancy this. He's one who keeps the ball low, can run the ball up the greens, really almost identical to the way Clark played. I think he has quite a similar game. So the 70-1 that's out there, I'm sure 66-1 short, and in places it was even bigger earlier on in the week. I would make him closer to a 33-1 shot in this.
Yeah, well, it seems like you're not the only one. And Brandon Gray's certainly somebody whose game fits perfectly with what is needed to go well around Royal St George's. Next up, I mean, it's Sergio Garcia. You put up at 1 point each way at 70-1, and this is quite a conundrum in my view, as you know, maybe one of those mug punters you were just talking about, where you've got a guy whose open record is absolutely stellar without winning one, but whose recent major tournament record is amongst the worst of this caliber of player. He's 70-1 at the moment with Mansion Bet and Bet Victor, but you've seen enough to persuade you to go with the former rather than the latter form guide.
There's been plenty of majors down the years where he hasn't been performing and still turns up to an Open Championship and produces the goods. So it's not really a big worry for me. More of a pointer would be the last 3 top 20s that he's posted, three on the trot at the Charles Schwab, the US Open, and the BMW in Europe. And as I say, the US Open is a big top 20. You're always looking at decent performance in the previous major. Not many nowadays seem to win a major championship having not posted a decent result in the previous one. So the top 20 there is very good. The putter is always an issue, and even if he wins it this week, I'm sure we're going to be absolutely tortured throughout the 4 days of him missing some putts. So, but at the same time, links greens is where that putter performs best for him. So I think 70-1 out there as well. It looks very tasty for a Masters Championship and an Open specialist who keeps the ball low. He's a great driver of the golf ball. Great approach player. Will hit plenty of greens. I think greens in regulation will turn out to guys who hit the most greens will be up there on the leaderboard come the weekend. I think it's a great price for him playing good golf. As you say, the major record isn't great, but the last 3 efforts have been super. Top 20 in the US Open last time out. There's no negatives there really at all in recent form. So I think he's a great price and one who could definitely go well.
Yeah, unbelievable. If you look at his Open Championship finishes between 2002 and 2016, so before he won at Augusta, he's got an 8th, a 10th, a 5th, a 5th, a 2nd, a 9th, a 2nd, a 6th, and a 5th. I mean, that is, you look at somebody like Lee Westwood, who you imagine has, or Justin Rose, who has a decent Open Championship record, and that pales in significance compared to what Sergio Garcia has done in the Open Championship in the past, no matter where the tournament is held. So if he is back to his best, it's impossible not to see him go well. I think I do agree. 2 more at bigger prices then. Lucas Herbert, the first one, 1 point each way at 100-1. Probably a fair few punters listening to this podcast or watching this video who, basically only bet on the majors, may not know too much about these two. So give us a bit of background about Herbert and why you think he's got the tools to go better than 100-1 shot this weekend.
Well, he won at Mount Juliet 2 weeks ago, and he won Dubai earlier on last year. And Dubai form and desert form is usually a good pointer towards links form. And Herbert looks the exact type who'll go well on links. He obviously won on Mount Juliet, which isn't links, of course, but he backed that up with the top 5 in Scotland last week at the Renaissance and gave it a good go. He actually only finished 1 shot out of the playoff in the end. So I think it's quite easy to fall into the trap in major championships to always back the guys who kind of look like they're going to win a major, the guys who haven't won a major, like the guys like Leishman that some of them have already backed this week. It's also important to think outside the box slightly, and as you say, there are some guys who only really watch the majors will be surprised to see Lucas Herbert around the 80 to 100-1 mark, but that's just a sign of his form and his credentials. To be fair, I think he's a very talented sort, and he would strike me kind of similar to Charles Schwartzel whenever he won the Masters. Just a very informed European tour golfer who's been winning events, and he's won 2 in the last 14 months or so. So it's great form for a European Tour player. Not many guys won multiple times in the last year or two. And yeah, as I say, the links for it, he showed that he could play in links last week in Scotland. He played great stuff. And at the end of the day, he was only one shot off Matt Fitzpatrick, who is less than half his price. Plus, Herbert has the win 2 weeks ago. So I think it was a risky one. Like I had a few others who I would have liked to include. Most notably, really, Russell Henley, who's played great golf all year, and he was maybe overdue a win and a big performance in a major. He played well there at the US Open for a fair long way as well. But Lucas Herbert's form just this side of the water has just slightly swayed me, and it's a risky one. I agree, but I think he could maybe might not have the battle to win it, but he could easily contend over the weekend.
He's 100 to 1 with Sporting Index, so only 5 places, but you got 90 to 1 with 365, who are 8, the same with Mansion Bet as well. So still some opportunities to support Herbert and near enough a triple figure price, even if you've taken that most of that 100 to 1 away. And then the final selection is a player who is currently, I think you put him up at 275. There's still a bit of that around with Bet365 and BetVictor. Chris Kirk.
Yeah, bit of a left field one, to be fair, but I backed him 2 weeks ago at the Rocket Mortgage at 80-1, and he was one or two shots behind going into the final day. It should have been better, actually. He had a poor finish on the Saturday evening, which kind of put him behind the 8-ball a bit, but he's a streaky putter, which sometimes he really disappoints in the greens, but if he manages to hold putts this week, he could well be a contender. He's only played in 2 Open Championships, one of which was at Royal Liverpool, where he finished 19th. So top 20 and only 2 starts in Open Championships, and that's actually his best performance in a major. 19th at the Open there about 5 or 6 years ago. Royal Liverpool was, of course, the week McIlroy won. It was another week of good conditions, sunny conditions, and warm. So I think that'll suit Kirk. And I think he's just overperforming on the PGA Tour without really getting his rewards. So I think for the each way terms out there, you've got 10, 11, 12 comfortably out there to get. I think he's a great each way bet, playing good golf in the States, and he's one who can keep it on the straight and narrow. And with the videos and the photos we've seen of the rough so far, I think that could prove vital over the week. So I think he's a great price at 250 and 275.
Chris Kirk, the final one there for Nile at a massive price, 275 to 1 for him in the Open Championship. Before we let you go, Niall, we're just going to run through some of those at the top end of the market who people would probably have on their shortlists, and you can either tell them that they're a good thing or tell them to steer clear. Brooks Koepka is next. So he's sandwiched in between Jon Rahm and Jordan Spieth at the top of the market, 18 to 1 best price. And fair to say, he's got quite a sneaky good Open Championship record as well. How do you see him going this weekend?
Yeah, I think he could contend quite easily. That's a fair price. The 18 to 1's quite decent. I think a couple of majors this year, we've all been going, why did we not back Brooks?
Yeah.
Yeah. That were available. We could be saying again about 18s. It's a very fair price. But as I mentioned in the US Open podcast, I think I've been slightly disappointed with his efforts at the weekend in some of these majors, and he's maybe not quite as prolific. He's prolific in contending them, don't get me wrong, but maybe not quite as prolific as winning them as what he once was a couple of years ago. So it would be enough to put me off. Plus, I think you're just looking at guys who have slightly more imagination around the golf course than what Brooks has, and maybe a slightly lower ball flight as well. I'm just looking to those who, if it's a tough links test, which it has been here at St George's before, it just might not suit Koepka, and even though the price looks fair, given on what he does in major championships, I would rather go elsewhere.
Next up are 3 players, all at 22 to 1. You've got 2 major championship winners and regulars at top end of the market in Open Championships in Rory McIlroy and Justin Thomas, and then Xander Schauffele there with them as well, who of course went close a few years ago when you were on the 1-2 with Molinari and Schauffele. But personally, it seems a little bit on the short side for me to have him kind of amongst these players in the market. How do you see these 3?
Yeah, I'm saying at every major championship here until he wins one. below or 20 to 1 or below, it just doesn't wash with Sander Schauffele. He still hasn't won in a couple of years. I think the Open Championship might be, especially an Open Championship with fair weather, I think could be a great chance for him, actually. And he played okay last week. He switched putting methods again, switched from the arm lock, so there could be positives in there. But again, he can go and win it around the 18 to 1 mark, and I won't be crying on Sunday not being on. McIlroy and Thomas, I would probably choose McIlroy out of the three of those guys. Again, it's going to be sunny and warm, might be windy, yes, but it looks like the weather will be good, so that will suit McIlroy. It suited him in Royal Liverpool a few years ago, and he's playing decent enough stuff. There's a lot of positives. He's definitely improving. Thomas wouldn't strike me as one to get really involved with around the 20 to 1 mark in an Open Championship either. I expected to get at least 25s, maybe 28s for him this week. I think we backed him at 28s at £30, and I would say that their price was, or that course would suit him better than an Open Championship. Even he showed good signs last week in Scotland, to be fair. Played well throughout the week, so I wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, I wouldn't really like to get involved at that price. Same with Dustin Johnson. I just don't think he's in the same form as what he was when he won the Masters. Plus, he just doesn't strike me as one of those Open Championship types who I don't know whether he'd win one in his career, and I certainly wouldn't want to back him around the 20 to 1 mark either. You've got the likes of Tyrrell Hatton. Yeah, I'm adamant that the likes of Tyrrell Hatton, even though I haven't backed him, but there's numerous golfers further down the list here that should be shorter than the likes of Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Cantlay, even Colin Morikawa. I think those guys who plenty of people have backed, I've backed a few of them, the likes of Casey, Grace, Fleetwood, Lowry. I think all those guys should be shorter in the market than those Americans. It's a bold statement, but these Open Championships do suit these European golfers who have more experience maybe on these type of courses and in the desert out in the Far East. So even the likes of Fitzpatrick too, who played great golf last week. I think these guys all have livelier chances than even the Dustin Johnsons and the Justin Thomases of this world.
I'm going to ask you about two Americans that I've backed in a second. I think you're going to tell me that I'm crazy given what you've just said. But first, can we just talk about Louis Oosthuizen? Because I know that you like to side with players who are knocking on the door of majors, and his performances in the US Open, USPGA combined is quite clearly the best major tournament form coming into this. And he is, of course, a previous winner of the Claret Jug, and he's also lost an Open Championship playoff as well. So ticks plenty of the boxes, and at 35 to 1, maybe looks like it hasn't been taken too much into consideration, especially when you consider the obvious, not weaknesses, but the obvious reasons why you wouldn't get involved with some of the players like Schauffele, like Dustin Johnson that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think the price is just about right. Like I prefer a bit bigger if I was going to back him. The thing that worries me is that even though Louis Oosthuizen has a great attitude, one of the best in the game, but that defeat at Torrey Pines will surely hurt. 4 or 5 holes to go there. He was half in control of it before Rahm just pulled out. If Rahm doesn't hold them 2 putts on those last 2 greens, those 2 20-footers, he wins by 2 shots. It's an awful bitter pill to swallow. Even for a guy like Oosthuizen, who has a great attitude towards the game. We backed him at 20 pounds that week as well, but we backed him at 66 to 1, and now you're talking half that price and less. Yes, he might suit an Open Championship more maybe than everybody suits that kind of test, but when we're talking about punting and try and make a few quid at this, I don't think that's the kind of price that you want to be backing Louis Oosthuizen at. He's come close numerous times in major championships, but the 28 to 1 to 33s out there just wouldn't quite cut it for me.
Right, time for me to tell you 2 players that I've backed. You need to tell me that I'm crazy and I should have waited until after the podcast to back them. Start with one you've already mentioned there, whose chances you don't like. I've backed Patrick Cantlay, which I didn't think I would ever probably do from major championship until he won one. But I think just the way that he plays, he's 35 to 1 with 365 at the moment. He's somebody who's not played very many Open Championships so far, but he did finish 12th on his debut back in 2018 and then 41st last time. So he's made 2 cuts. So I think he's a better player than he was back then as well. And if you look at the kind of player that finished towards the top end of the market, that kind of wilier, older player, I think even though he's not an old player, the way that he plays the game and the way he keeps it straight, and you can be pretty sure he's not going to hit the rough too many times and he's decent around the greens, coupled with the fact that he's won recently, just seems to tick a few boxes where I have him in terms of player quality probably around the same level as somebody like Schauffele. Yeah, you're getting nearly twice the price for him. So it's now up to you, Niall, to tell me where I've gone wrong.
I've mentioned numerous times in this podcast before. I'm of the opinion that Cantlay is an overrated golfer, if anything.
Yeah.
He hasn't won enough for me. Even, well, to be fair, that's very harsh. In the last 18 months, he's been superb with his wins, actually. But he just doesn't strike me as one who's going to win an Open Championship. But I agree with you that he may be on a similar trajectory than the likes of Sander Schauffele, and you are getting close to double the price. But is keeping it on the straight and narrow will be important this week, and he is one to keep it in play, and there's a lot of positives going for him. But I think there's just the Europeans around the same price. So much more value to me. The likes, even though I haven't backed them, the likes of Fleetwood and Larry, I would far rather back those guys at the same price and bigger, actually, than Cantlay, who hasn't really contended in an Open Championship yet at all. And strikes me, I'll continue with this, that he's just slightly overrated.
Yeah. I think me and you.
You've seen him around the 20-1 mark and 25-1 mark for major championships before, so the 35-1 out there, I certainly wouldn't put anyone off backing him.
I'm feeling we might have a Lowry Cantlay side bet maybe after this podcast is recorded. Finally, I mean, another player that I seem to back in every single major. But who, Niall, do you know this? You may have seen, I think Justin Ray tweeted it yesterday. Who is the only player to finish in the top 10 in the last 2 Open Championships? You should know this. I've been telling you that I'm going to back him for this for the last pretty much 2 years.
Finau, is it?
Yeah, Tony Finau. I mean, it's frustrating for me having genuinely backed him for this, when it was the Open Championship 2020. I've been backing him for this tournament for 18 months. And it's annoying for me that he comes into it in the worst form he's been in 18 months. But he's a player who just has a very sneaky good links form. He's 2 top 10s. And when you think what the conditions were like in Portrush as well, I mean, this is a player who he's not a fair weather links player. He can really stubborn it out when the wind's blowing, which isn't necessarily going to be the case this weekend. He's also got very handy downhill links form as well, and the couple of times he's played. And you're getting, again, a price around about the 50-1 mark, 55-1. When normally you're seeing in the States, he's going off probably 33s, 40s for these majors as well. So there seems to be this idea that he's not a very good links player, whereas actually his form suggests completely the opposite. But of course, coming into it, he's not playing particularly well.
Yeah, I totally agree. He was on my short list of about 12 or 13 players yesterday that I actually thought it whittled down to 7, but it whittled down to 8 in the end. Yeah, as you say, sneaky good links for him. And if this was a run-of-the-mill PGA Tour event, you would probably see closer to half that price what he is. The links form and recent form, to be fair, I suppose has contributed to that price. But you see 70 and bigger even on the exchanges, which is mighty tempting for a guy like Finau, who has threatened major championships before, has a great record in them. So yeah, he is one I certainly would not put you off backing around the 50-1 mark and bigger when only. Yeah, he's got everything, and he can keep the ball low when he wants to. He can punch where low shots in, and he has got a lot going for him if he can just find some form, which he had early on in the year. He had some of the best form actually when he went, runners up a couple of weeks in a row. If he can recapture that form, he must have a great chance.
No, it'd be glorious to see Tony Finau lifting the claret jug on Sunday. We can't do an Open Championship preview, the last one we're going to talk about now, before we let you go, without mentioning, of course, Bryson Deshambo, who is nothing but box office. We've, of course, had the drama surrounding his caddy over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting stuff between him and Brooks Koepka over the weekend as well. How do you rate Bryson's chances? A player who, we know has the muscle to get himself out of some pretty nasty rough. So if he is going to be wayward off the tee, there's nobody with the tools better to get himself out of that pickle. But does he strike you as somebody who can go well at St George's over the weekend?
See, the thing at them long major venues is that when you hit the high rough, and he has got the strength to get out of it, he's closer to the green. It proves a big advantage. But an Open Championship is totally different, because you would rather be in the fairway 200 yards away than in the rough 100 yards away. That's not the case in those those major slogs in the States. So Bryson totally does not interest me, even around the 33-1 mark. Even the video I seen yesterday, he struggled to get it out of the rough that he was in. It didn't look good at all. So it all depends. If he drives a straight ball, which he's very capable of doing, he could score very well at the end of the day. But I think he will probably come unstuck with the high rough there is this week, and it does look very high. So he's maybe one to look to take on if you see any match bets for the bookmakers. Any guys around the same price or even better. You've got the likes of Fitzpatrick, even Oosthuizen, the likes of Hatton. If you can get them up against Bryson on a match bet, that might be a decent bet.
Interesting. Now, I know you've been busy at home over the last week or so you haven't had a chance to look through all of the sub-markets. We're going to leave that. But one you've just mentioned there, so I'll pick it up. I'm guessing you think the 11 or 4 available for Bryson to miss the cut could be an appealing way to go?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. I don't know whether his game will be that bad to miss the cut, but at the end of the day, an Open Championship, it's very easy to make these. You can run up a high number very easily on some of these holes. And especially if Bryson goes from rough into one of those pot bunkers that it's hard to get out of. And you could run up a triple or quadruple bogey quite easily. And Bryson will do well to keep double bogeys off the card this week.
There you have it. Thank you very much to Niall there for giving us his thoughts ahead of the Open Championship starting on Thursday at Royal St George's this weekend. All of his tips there, all 8, you can read up on the oddschecker app. You can also find all of the bets and markets we spoke about today, the very best prices, the best place terms. As I say, plenty out there really sticking their neck out. A couple 12 places, a couple 11, 8, 9, 10. Whatever you want there, you can find the player you want to back and find the best terms with which to do so. Free bets up there as well, bookie offers and all sorts too. So do download the oddschecker app. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel for plenty other preview content across all sports. And do find this podcast and other podcasts up on any podcast platform as well too. So please do enjoy the weekend's golf and please gamble responsibly.